Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from HPWL.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. Today, I have a graduate of the Fast Track to Freedom program, Krista H HPWL, with us. Krista, thank you so much for being here and being willing to share your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So excited.
Yeah, I specifically was thinking about your journey and just where you were before and just your circumstances that you were in, because I know for a lot of people who need this kind of support, there are all the different reasons, right, of why it's not the right time or it doesn't make sense or, whatever that has us hesitate. But you were able to really support yourself in getting past all of those considerations, have the conversation that allowed you to say, yes, I do think this is the right move for me, to be where you're at now. So I'm just super excited to have everybody benefit from hearing more details of your story. But if you would first just share like where you live and what you do for a living so people can relate in that way. And then where you were prior to finding hypnosis for permanent weight loss.
Yeah, okay. That's a lot. So Krista Huber, I live in Colorado, in the Denver metro area, for those that are familiar. I am married, have been married for like 13 years and have three small kids, so 9, 6, and 3. So what I do for a living is complicated, but I'll say I have a couple small businesses that I run very, very, very part-time, but my main job is that I am a licensed CNA and I support the needs of our middle child who's 6 because she has some significant um, medical needs. And so that is my primary job, is just supporting her. And so I think probably, where I was at before the program, similar, I would guess, to many moms in my life stage with small kids. Just really, I was really struggling. So again, I quit my job 2 years ago, like my full-time corporate career 2 years ago, to support our kiddo and really be a stay-at-home mom. But I'll say that in quotes because it's a more complicated version of stay-at-home mom, I would say. And just really there was a lot of loss of identity for me in one, becoming a mom, which I think a lot of people can relate to, but then also having a child with special needs and then also giving up my career. So there's a lot of that. We've had a lot of trauma in the last 7 years, both related to her diagnoses, her specific medical care that has been ongoing, and then like the loss of my father-in-law, and just like all the things that we go through just as humans. And so I just kind of found myself in a spiral of, I don't know how to fix it, and I have no time and no capacity to think about anything, but I know that I'm not feeling good in my body, period. But how do I do any of that when basically everyone else's needs come before mine? And so just grasping at straws across the board.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I'm sure that everybody who's listening can now understand what I was saying in the beginning of the episode, because to be honest, Krista, like it's more rare that parents with small children will do my program. It does happen, and right. But like, given all of your circumstances, like not only do you have small children, but you also have, children with special needs, medical needs, and just all those different things. But for you to be able to still take action and, get help for yourself despite all that is remarkable. What do you think? Was it just because you were in so much pain, as you were going through it, that, or like what has you be able to still take action on yourself despite all those things, would you say?
um Great question. One, I just believe in the power of sometimes the universe or God or whatever you want to call it kind of aligns your path with something else. So one, I just think that that kind of happened, stumbled across, your podcast and some of the stuff. So what I think just divine timing, but also I
Nice.
think for me, I would say that I just hit a really low point, because again, it's already difficult. Just the baseline is already difficult. I think people that, have small kids and as a mom and carrying the mental load and all the stuff we're trying to do and, create emotionally stable, healthy children, right? The things we run after. And then life happens. And so you're already in a hard place, but then life happens. And it took me to a really low point. And then as I started to try to dig into it or like unpack it or not feel, but like I wanted to feel better or like then it almost got worse, right? Because then you're just really digging into some very painful things. And so I couldn't get out. I'll say it that way. That's what it felt like. It's just like very stuck or very like lost, but deep in the loss, you know? So,
Yeah.
and I think it just kind of was a point of either we choose actively to make a change and to try something different, or we risk you know, really hurting more, even not just self, but others, right? Because now we're living out of a place of depletion and it is coming out at my husband and coming out at my kids and affecting all the other things I do. So I would rather, yeah, try to figure out something I can do to be healthier than live in a place of, kind of, even if only semi permanent, but permanency of depletion, if that makes sense. So,
Yes, all such important points of bringing out, and I oftentimes will have women say like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to invest in myself at this time. My kids need to take priority. They have this going on. I need to pay for that." And I always say to them like, if your kid was struggling with the same thing you're struggling with right now and they found this program and it costs what it costs, like would you pay? And they're like, I wouldn't even think for a second. I would immediately pay for it. So it's just like, we got to ask ourselves, like, why are we not taking our own mental and emotional, right, and physical health seriously then? Like,
seriously,
why wouldn't we? And you're right, like the impact, especially as mothers, right? But that it has on our entire family, if you're depleted and not, running on fumes, yeah, it's just yeah. And then not only that, but then in these core times that your kids are growing up, like these are the times to imprint, right? Healthy, emotional, right? And body
hmm
image and food and all that kind of stuff, especially on young girls. So yeah, just really thank you for being an example of what that can look like. Cause I know you also had to like move things around. Like you had to communicate with your husband about taking care of the kids these nights of the week and da 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 da, right? So what was
hmm
that like?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, I think I think it was a challenge. I luckily have a supportive husband, and I think he definitely recognized that I was not in a good place. So partly, I'm grateful for him, but also as me kind of, to your point, advocating for myself, which is the last thing I do. I think instead I'm trying to make sure everyone, including my husband, is taken care of. But at the end of the day, I was like, I'm running out of gas to do that. So I'm going to need to request, this space so that I can take care of me. And again, I think there's a lot of culturally like, hey, moms, why don't you just do self care? You need self care, you need time for you. And realistically, especially for me, and I know for my mom friends, it's like just not a thing. So, like, and I think there's so much pressure almost to do self care that it almost counteracts or negates any of the benefit of self care. But what I would say is like, it was difficult for me to ask for that time. It was difficult for me to not be present at dinner time and bedtime, like when these calls interceded with that and stuff. And it was a sacrifice, but also it was, something I needed for me. And that's okay too. It wasn't taking away every night of the week. So
Mm.
yeah, it was definitely a different feeling because I'm not used to asking for help and I'm not used to doing it, but it was needed and worth it, in the end. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you there. And I know you're someone who values personal development and professional development, and you had already done a fair amount of work on yourself. And I remember the first conversation that we had was just kind of supporting to see, right, of how this would be different. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, well, and I'm an overthinker. I like to think of myself as someone that's kind of like emotionally in tune. So yeah, I've done a lot of like talk therapy. I've done some different like modalities of therapy and things like that. But And I think that's one of the things, yeah, I looked critically at this program of like, how much does it cost relative to my talk therapy, relative to these other modalities, and like what I'm investing in and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, um, for me, why this was different was because it is so well, actually, I'm sure we'll get into it, but on the surface level, it's so focused on, like body image and food and things like that, that I thought were a driver of some of my, um, unrest, let's call it. So I liked that it was focused on some of the things that I was focused on, versus like, sometimes when you just go to talk therapy, like you start going down a path and then you're like down that path and it may not have been what you originally had wanted to work on and you went somewhere else. And that's good, but I loved it. This was supporting something that was so core to what I was struggling with. And yeah, and started there. So I think, again, it was just a different look, if you will, at a set of things that was important where I just didn't feel like I was able to connect that way with other options. So I don't know if
Hmm.
that helped, but yeah, I've done a lot of
Yeah,
it.
and
So
I'll
that's
just
part
share
of my
really
problem.
quick. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I'll share really quick on that note. Like, I've also done therapy. I think there's value in therapy in that as well. I have another client who also, did therapy for a long time and maybe even still does. But what she was saying, and so with neurolinguistic programming, which is my background, it's like we're trained to be present to how each individual's mind processes the world. So when you are saying about, I go about one thing for therapy and then I talk and talk and talk, and then we're on a different page. Like my thing is to catch maybe that pattern of, oh, hey, we're all the way over here, not a problem. And what is this showing me about the inside of how Krista's amazing mind works that still could be preventing her from having this specific transformation? And that's what my client said was like, you have a way to just really bring me back to what
Yeah.
is the actual issue that no therapist has been able to do for me before to actually help me get the result. So
Mhm.
my, from working with you was, and like so many of my clients, like super smart, like can figure anything out, like can understand the full thing. And when that is the thing, it's kind of like, okay, less think, more feel. And I know
Yeah.
that you remember, like, every time I'd be like, bring me back and be like, all right, what are the emotions? How can we support Chris in a feeling? So could you share a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, that's like, I think that what that was or is continues to be the, transformation for me because yeah, I can take everything you teach me, read a bunch of books and like accept it as fact and integrate it. But at the end of the day, like those are just facts and not feelings. And the actual feelings, and that was this whole program, is the hardest part. And the drivers, I think that's what's underneath and like having to feel them, be present with them, sit with them, just like listen to them and let them all be validated. Like all these things. So I
Mhm.
think for me that was the work. But I didn't know it was the work until I did the program because I thought I was
Mhm.
doing that work. But what I recognized is that, yeah, no, because I was just integrating the knowledge, but not actually letting it find a home in the feelings. So,
Totally. And that
yeah,
was my experience as well. Was like I could connect the dots, like I needed to understand the full process. I could see the whole thing, but I was still in my inner experience was still stress, anxiety, not
yeah.
actually producing that freedom inside myself.
Hmm.
So yeah, love supporting other people and kind of having that breakthrough. And I know that you also had done some work where they would support you to break through the emotions, and you were on your first call talking about like I hit this certain barrier, I'm not able to get past it, like I kind of freak out or whatever. Do you remember that? Can you share a little bit about that? And
Yeah, yeah. I think it was again them. I think at that point, like there was some certain pieces that I felt like they were trying to guide me, yeah, to a place that I wasn't ready for. I hadn't gotten there yet, and I think it was because again they were guiding me there with knowledge, and the feelings were not yet kind of being validated. And I think that where we focus more on this program was like understanding why the feelings were there. So going back, but also, being present to present and all these things and what the feelings are saying before we're kind of going there to work through it, right? And I think that was the big piece of going like all the yeah, I feel like a little bit of a broken record, but validating the feelings so that we can really work into them because without that, the feelings just keep yelling at you. And you can't work through them if you're not actually going to work into them, I guess, and so that I think had been the disconnect that I didn't realize, but I think that's why I felt so uncomfortable, is because we hadn't really spent a whole lot of time validating like how true those feelings were and all the good work they've been doing for me also, before we tried to like work through them or push through them or fix them, if you will. Fix is
Yeah.
feels like
And
an uncomfortable word, Yeah.
totally 100%. And I don't know about you, but for me, um, it's hard for me to, I highly value time. So if someone's just like telling me to do something and I don't understand why it's not a waste of time or how this is actually going to get me to where I want to go faster, or like you're saying, validating also what I'm saying instead of just like, and we're still going to do this process. It's like, in order for me to go there and get there and have this transformation, I need to understand it and be validated in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And now I feel safe enough to go there,
Move to that.
myself. And so I do feel that, yeah, all of that, because the unconscious mind's job is to protect us. And so everybody's, inside mind is going to need their own safety and validate and whatever that looks like for them in order to
Totally.
produce the results. So, it's my job to be super present with each client. And like, if there's blocks, so I've had clients who have been like, going and doing the inner work, and then they feel like some of that, like, oh, like, I got to get out or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, that's okay. Just like remind the unconscious mind it's safe to stay in the feeling, like nothing bad's happening in real time. Right. And then they're able to like, whereas other maybe less seasoned practitioners might be like, no problem, come back out. And now they're still left with that experience of there is something too scary. I'm not ready to access it. When in reality, it's like, yeah, just being able to coach someone to the safety and validation that they can and they're capable. And then once they just touch on it even one time of like actually, experiencing what that feeling, because it feels so scary. Like I remember the first time that I started feeling emotions, like I literally thought I was going to die. Like I thought everything in my life was going to fall apart. I thought I was going to fail at all my responsibilities at work, at home. Um, but then you realize, and what was your experience like after you started feeling the feelings and breaking through that?
Well, first I would like to say I think also that's where, you come in and have been exceptional, is that, the therapists or some of the people I've worked with in the past have kept going down the path without checking back in or bringing it back to where I'm actually at. So I think whether it's in or out or whatever, I think you've done a good job of being like, I understand this driver and I understand this pattern in you, and so therefore I'm gonna follow you a little bit, and I'm gonna kind of lovingly like help support that we might be just veering 1 degree off of that path, but it's still consistent with what you've been feeling. So I think you did a great job with that. But I think, yeah, for me, there was some like really big releases. I think both personally, like with my husband, I've since had some big releases with my mom that just that were huge and like in there that I didn't want to, because yeah, to your point, I was afraid of losing relationship. I was afraid of, rocking the boat or doing something differently from what I've been doing in the past. But I think, yeah, it's just been really good, because what I've felt is like, yeah, this freedom or this like lift of some of the heaviness of like carrying it inside and like letting some of that go, or and being able to like free it by naming it, by feeling it, by sharing it with someone else because it is true and real. You know, it's just a lightness, and then it doesn't come back. And so I guess how I would describe it, of like with holding it, it's like there constantly and reminding you and pinging you and do it. And now because I've said it, like I don't have to keep reliving it inside of me, because it's out and it's been said and it's been released to like go do so. Yes, it served a purpose all of that time, but now, we can move on beyond it, I guess, is kind of how it feels. I feel like it'll make sense if you've had the experience, and otherwise I
No,
sound
it's
like a
no,
crazy
I was
person.
saying
So,
you're very eloquent in a good way of
okay,
communicating the
good.
journey you are. Like it's
Yeah,
communicating
yeah.
really well, probably better than I've heard it communicated before. So thank you. I'm sure it's
Oh,
making a difference for people. And you're right. Like
no.
once you actually feel safe enough, and for all of us, whether it was we just didn't have emotionally available parents, or there was some kind of trauma or abuse, like it could be huge issues, small issues, whatever. But if we ever got it in our minds and in our bodies that we were not safe to feel or whatever, then we just internalize it. And like you're saying, like even expressing yourself, right? If it ever came back and it was like, put against you, or you were made wrong for it, or you felt dumb for it. It's like, then, and I know it happened to me, and even like in like a more surface thing, like of just talking about my food, body, and weight challenges, of people being like, oh, come on, like, no, or, just do this, or, oh, try this. I've been doing this. It's been great. Like, and it just made me shut completely down because I felt like nobody could actually hear how bad it was for me. And then,
100%.
so that's one small example, but it could be like, as a kid, another example, like I went to tell my mom that I felt depressed, right? And that was like the most terrifying thing to tell her. And like, it just, I wasn't, the need that I had emotionally was not met. So again, it was just like, my needs can't be met, and so again,
Mhm.
and then, same thing of bringing up a hard conversation and then it causes a huge argument and it does sever a relationship. Well, now I'm not safe to bring up my qualms in relationship. So then again, we're just swallowing it, and that's what leads
Mhm.
to. And I'm curious, like, do you see, and now that you've felt through some of those really hard things you hadn't been feeling, was there a correlation between like the constant food, body, and weight thinking and the pushing down of just those emotions? How are your thoughts about all of that stuff right now?
Yeah, well, and I think I've shared it. Like, I think what I realized most in the program is it was never about the food. For me, for me, that's
Yeah.
what's the most bizarre thing is it was, yeah, just so much deeper. And so I think, yeah, I do have a lot of freedom in that, and that like I don't. Well, one of the things I learned in the program, I think, just in general though, is that like a lot of our food, diet, body, all of it is coming from a culture that's just not right with it either, right? Meaning I've been too obsessed with something that I really can't control. Like my body is shaped the way that it is. It's beautiful no matter what, whether I'm 10 pounds heavier or 10 pounds lighter. The truth is that it doesn't really matter, and it's more about how I feel within my body. So I think that in itself has been really freeing with the foods that I eat. Like I actually take the time now to sit and go like, is that going to feel good? Like I love bagels and cream cheese. Is that going to feel good in my body right now? And I might say, no, actually, right now I don't feel like it, but like I might tonight, and that's great. And then I'll eat it. Or so last night, my kids had pizza. I didn't order myself pizza. I didn't really feel like it, but then I was like, actually, one piece of their pizza does sound good, and I was just able to stop at that. So I think there's just this, yeah, the freedom is recognizing that like all the drivers, the stress, the anxiety, things I'm holding inside are distracting me often, or like just not, or just are my focus. So then what happens when I'm eating, or what happens when I'm thinking, I'm just like judging myself. I'm just hard on because there's all these feelings inside that are festering and not in control. And I think it's just an outlet for all the negativity, and now that as I've been working on letting it go, which is still a work in progress, we're not 100% there, but we're continuing to work on it all. That's just been really freeing to just go, and now the food just doesn't really matter as much because at the end of the day, it's not the thing. It's just a thing, to help me survive, but it's not a thing. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like roundabout answer your question that yeah, there has been a lot of freedom from it.
That's
In
huge. And what
general, yeah.
I'm also hearing
Yeah.
you say, because I've been using the metaphor lately of like, if we're not addressing the emotional stuff that's actually underneath the surface, like, and it's just under there and it's under there and it's suppressed and we have no safe place to put it and we're not even sure what it is, right? And like, if I say it, it's not safe. And if I feel it, it's not safe. So then it's just like we're clinging on to the life raft. So as soon as you see the pizza or as soon as you feel one hunger urge, it's like everything about you is like crazy going for that. And then
Yeah.
everything about you right after that, because the emotion still hasn't been released, is to now go crazy being hard on yourself and saying, I can't believe you made that choice. Right. And it's just like, so what I'm hearing you say is like,
Yeah.
I released those emotions. I got validated. I felt safe to feel it. I, can handle those now. And so now I'm able to make an empowered choice and there isn't that drama. It's just, I'm going to have it. I'm not going to have it. And therefore freedom, balance and all the rest. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that there aren't still learnings, but that major
Angst about
initial
it. Yep. Hmm.
release of just that stuff, right, is really where we go to work on in that first fast track program of the H for the hypnosis and the E for the emotional mastery. And from there, then it kind of gets fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, of just kind of being able to like, all right, like let me like align, like what is me? Like what do I want to do? Like how do I want things to be? So how have things been, since working through all that? And congratulations,
Yeah.
by the way.
Well,
It's like such a
oh,
huge, I like the piece is like radiating out of your body.
Oh,
Like
you're so
it
sweet.
really is.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, thank you for all the tools. And I think for me now, I'm definitely in a full state of alignment, like trying to figure out who that even is. And I think a lot of moms can resonate of like, it's just such an identity switch. I mean, so when you become a mom and all this stuff, but then you just layer on like just trying to do life. And so for me, yeah, I'm full on in the like, yeah, who even am I? What makes me happy? And I think I'm spending a lot more time of like, yeah, how am I reflecting my emotional state? Meaning, am I being true to, am I listening to it? Am I naming it? And how am I helping others do that? Like I have a good friend that does it. And just yesterday we were having a great conversation where I was just like, wow, I really hear you saying, I really wonder if, you know, maybe this is true for you, that like a reparenting moment would be good for you in this moment of just of validating that little child and like really telling them it is okay, you are right, like this is true, and then letting us move through it instead of, because I hear you not, you know. So it's just been interesting to even take those tools now and like share them with others of going like, because you're just now seeing this perspective of the world that is like, I see that that's a little broken piece in you and it is worth it to validate it. So that, and then for me, just like figuring out with my life, I'm trying to take a lot more inspired actions, deciding what feels good to my body. And it feels good because I don't have a lot of free time. But when I do have that 5 minutes, what do I want to spend it doing? And it's okay for me to choose to do something that feels good for me, whether that's just like literally sitting outside and enjoying a cup of coffee, or if that's actually doing a load of laundry, because at that time, getting the laundry done feels good. And so I think just being more mindful to like not just being a machine and not just going through the motions and not feeling my feelings, but being present in them. And yeah, I don't think I'm all the way there. I think I have like a lot of work to continue to do, but even just thinking about it brings a lot of like rest to it, because you're like, oh, okay, someone is listening to me. I'm
Mhm.
listening to me, but somebody is
Woo!
listening to me now,
Oh
you
my
know? So
God.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say is
Hmm.
like because you learned how to validate your own emotions and see those different
Hmm.
aspects of yourself, like you're able to be more of a loving presence for all
Yeah.
people that you're with and can spot those things and be a stand for them to be kind to
Them too. Yeah.
themselves and validate themselves. And you're right, it literally is like every moment. Because I just heard someone, or was it you? Anyway, talking about self-care and like how it's such like, oh, mom should have self-care and da 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 da. But it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like then we have images of like, oh, you
No.
need to take a bath at night or like there's no time. Like this is different.
Yeah.
Like you could take a bath and your brain could still be buzzing and shaming yourself and getting pit because you haven't done this. So it's like, okay, you could spend a bunch
Yeah.
of money on a cruise or a spa or whatever, but that's a it's not even doing anything when this is the
Yeah.
issue, right? So it's like really
Hmm.
like we can invest in all that or Amazon sprays or whatever, but like, or, doing this that could actually lead you in that space. But it is then just like
Yeah.
every moment gets to be a self-care moment. Like you're saying, it's like you still have your to-do list, right? I still have my list, but every moment it's still like what will feel good for me now to do and now and now and now. And part of that is,
Yep.
the to-do list at times. And sometimes, like you said, it's taking a quick break or whatever. So that we're
Yep.
not like waiting for the vacation that may never come, but it's like literally I can create each moment to
Living the
be,
vacation. Hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
while you're going through everything
Mhm.
that you're going
Yep.
through. So
Yep.
what an incredible thing that you created for yourself. That's incredible. Good. How have you seen it impact your with parenting with how has it been with your daughter, your son?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good. I think parenting is still parenting, right? So there are moments when I still want to throw my kids out of the car. No, I don't. Don't call CPS. But I think, and this is just part of my work. My oldest daughter is in an age where I had a lot of things happen that I can tell like really impacted my journey. So it's just like being very aware of her and like giving her space, and I think
Mm,
just because I don't always do it well, right? Again, still learning, but I think just being able to go, wow, like I see you and I see that you're saying you're having a hard time. And while this doesn't, in my mind, saying like, well, I think this is so dumb because she clearly just needs to drink more water. But like for me, it's going, yeah, like, wow, like your experience is valid. Thank you for sharing. And I think just it's almost like taking the wind out of that sail, right? Because it's just, I
mm,
need to feel validated. And then as soon as you go like, and I see you, like even, and then she calms down and like she regulates, because again, so much of my kids' ages still are requiring that co-regulation. And I think just teaching her that mom's going to be there and I'm going to listen, I'm going to hear you. You know, we may not always agree, but I'm going to give you space for those feelings so that we can move to what was actually happening, right? Because again, sometimes the feelings are just there and they need to be let out so that we can come back to that centered place. So it's been really cool to connect with her in that way and share that, because I think it's helped her just really come down from a super heightened place too a lot of times. So it's been cool. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, we don't recognize the power of literally before immediately trying to fix something or to just say, I see you, or like, wow, I can
Yeah.
really see you're angry. And that's okay. It's
Yeah.
safe to be angry. Like, and then move on. Like, it's literally a couple statements that could just completely change the entire thing. Oh my gosh. Krista,
Yeah.
when you're ready to
Well, and to
be
your point,
like a transformation coach, let me
coach,
know because everything you're
yes.
exercising
Oh,
is this. It's
oh,
incredible.
thank you. Well, and
Yeah.
one thing I would share too is like not with my daughter, but with my husband. One of the things through the program that I recognized is like I needed to hear to have him say, "I hear you." Like even if I was going off on a rant about like my kids or whatever, like I recognized I was like, "Oh, it would feel really good to me if you just said the words specifically, I hear you." And that's like been really good for our marriage. So I think even just in the program going like you're looking at and saying, I recognize these patterns of relationship, even between my husband and I, that like are really triggering some of these things, and being able to dissect it a little bit and go like, if he just made this one change, which I think if we're, you know, in healthy relationships or even kind of moderately healthy, I think everybody's trying to love each other well, right? And if we are all on the same page of that, like he was not in the moment, he was like, stop telling me what to do. But after we were able to calm down to that, when I was like, okay, he was like, "Oh, that's an easy thing for me to do for you that like de-escalates the situation too," right? So us even recognizing in relationship as spouses and partners and all that, what are little things, little mini changes, one word instead of like "I hear you" to like, you know, de-escalate stuff
Completely
too.
change the
Anyways,
game.
yeah, so not the
Absolutely.
kids, but also just relationships with people. So yeah, it's been really great.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So inspiring. Yeah. So for any
Yeah.
parent out there, or anybody who's considering the program, anything that you'd want to say to them?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say do it. I mean, well, but I think all like joking aside, I think it is just really worth looking at like what's preventing you. You know, like what are the real, because again, no, you're never going to have enough time. I didn't. I never did the program perfectly. I can, you know, we've talked about that. And that was part of my barriers is I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to spend the money, not do it perfectly, not get the most out of it. But the thing I think Leslie kept saying to me, or you kept saying to me that I'd say to others is like, it was just meant to be what I got out of it, right? At the time. And it was a lot. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. So even though the program itself is over, or whatever, we've completed it, like we're continuing to extend the things that I've learned into now, right? So it's never going to be the right time. You're never going to have all the money that you wish that you had. And so with what you do have in this moment, I feel like it's worth doing it because then you can keep, you know, reaping the benefits and things like that. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
and
I
to
would
bring
say.
it full circle to what you're saying, like I can't, I've been doing this for years and years, and the amount of people that are like, I feel like, my deceased family member or God or something, like something spiritual, divine, like led me to the podcast, led me to this. Like, so I've never gone wrong in my life by saying yes to something that I feel that like inner feeling, spiritual kind of calling towards. It's like, I don't know what it is, but this conversation, this energy. So it's like, every time I just say yes to that and kind of trust, like, if this is speaking to me, right, then it's for me. And so let me just trust
Yeah.
that whatever I'm getting by just listening to the energy, is what I'm meant to get, even if it's
Yeah.
not about doing all the right things, right? That's part of the reason that we are stuck in the first place is we're trying to dot every I and cross
Yeah.
every T, right? So how can we actually
Hmm.
learn some more, behavioral flexibility and be able to just master the emotionality that's causing us to feel so overwhelmed and, exhausted so that we can actually enjoy our lives. Like the fact that you're
Yeah.
so present despite everything that you're responsible for and, with your daughter and everything is just absolutely awesome. So
No.
thank you for doing the work and for showing up for yourself and sharing your story so that other people can benefit as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can't wait to see, what else you do with this. Obviously, you're already bringing it back into the world. And I really see you as somebody who's like, yeah, going to be, that safe space for
No.
other parents or, whatever that
I
looks
hope
like.
so.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And if this
Yeah.
is calling you in any way, shape, or form, head to our website, hpwl.co. Takes one action. You can't fail at booking a call. Just book a call and have a conversation, ask some questions. And if it's meant to be, then it'll be meant to be. So thank you so much, Krista, for being here. And we'll see you for the next episode. If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.